After a few days away from the studio, I quite fancy doing something like this, which is going to be very loose, just throwing some paint on, go for something nice, harmonious and colourful, without any detail really to worry about, and just enjoy myself painting. So let's give it a go. I'll just mark out roughly where things are. We've got this walkway here. That takes us off to there, and I'm just using this line here. Just guesstimating it. This is 12 inches by 16 inches. This is A4. So it's about there. And then we've got something here. So the reason I picked this scene to paint, so I've been away on the camper van for a few days. So it always takes me a day or two to get back into the swing of things in the studio. So I thought this would be a nice scene because there's nothing here really of detail. It's just shapes and colours. Makes me think of Turner, this one, and I think possibly I may have used Turner in the prompt maybe. So that's roughly where things are. Again, we can check our colours. Doesn't have to be exact really, that we're just looking to, I think the orange and the blue looks good together on this for me, and these warm reds in here and purple. So there's a lot of colour harmony, nice shapes, contrast, dark and light, combination of hard and soft edges. So it's got a lot of elements in there that make an interesting scene. And I don't think it'll take too long to paint. Not that I'm after anything quick to paint, but I didn't fancy doing anything really detailed. So I've got two reds here. I've got Lazarne Crimson and Carmine Red here, which is just a little bit more red. I'm interested to see what kind of orange that gives me. I don't think there's a lot in it really, to be fair. So it's actually more red, maybe a bit of Lazarne Crimson in there. So we'll start with that. And I'm going to do a little experiment. While I've got that orange on there, if I put an orange square there, I've been looking at a book by Josef Albers when I was on holiday. Watched a few videos about colours being relative to their surroundings, which is, I think, quite true. So we've got the same orange there. So we'll put some surrounding colours around those squares later on in the video and we'll see what happens. So warm this up as it goes around here. And I think I can have a bit of fun with this painting. A chance to experiment with loose brushwork. There's nothing definite here. That's a building there. It's just a dark shape. So I've got to be patient, build this up slowly. Got some lighter values through here, and this is just a case of putting the colours and the shapes and tonal values where you see them. I don't really want to be mixing this pink with that blue because we will end up with a neutral there, so I'll just paint up to there. If we have to do any blending, keep it minimal. And there's a building of some sort off in the distance here. Again, there's no real detail. Some neutrals in here will be quite good for the transitions of colour. And just have a bit of faith in the process. That's going to work. Look at that, it's a right mess at the moment, and you could quite easily start to think, oh well, this is not going to work, let's abandon ship. But stick with it. So we're getting some soft edges in there because we're doing a little bit of blending into there. So we've got this orange here next to this colour here, so let's perhaps put that colour around one of these squares. So we've got that square there. So in his book, he does it with bits of paper rather than paint, which is probably neater edges and so on, but I really don't know whether this is going to work or not. We'll give it a try. So that's one square. So when I come to do this blue, I think we'll try that blue next to that square, and we'll see, does the orange look brighter next to that blue than that colour? That's the challenge. So we've got some purples in there. And you could try that experiment with all sorts of colours and so on, which is what he does in his book. What a mess. So we've got the horizon is kind of about there. And then we've got these buildings. And these buildings here are a long way away, so they're getting lost in the sky. Come back to that maybe and sharpen up some of those edges. We'll see. It's good to have a few brushes on the go. Like I say, you can have quite a good bit of fun doing stuff like this. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, don't worry about it, you know, but it's very freeing to put paint on a canvas in this manner, just going for it. And if I take a clean brush without any paint on it, I could just soften some of those edges, but really loose. Wipe the brush off. Back up here with some pink. That's enough of that blending. We want to make everything the same colour and tonal value. So let's have a go with those buildings there. So the colours I've got on here are titanium white, cadmium yellow, my primary yellow is cadmium yellow pale, and we've got Zion Crimson, and I've got Carmine, which seems to be slightly between cadmium red and Zion Crimson, and Cobalt Blue. So it needs to be lighter in value. That's pretty good. So we've got, it's a bit of an odd scene really, because obviously it's a made up scene. Now we've almost got what looks like could be a skyscraper and then an old kind of barge. So, but, you know, we could turn that into more of a tower if you wanted to. The idea is have a bit of fun, make it whatever you want it to be. We've got a nice transition with the distant buildings disappear into the water, they disappear into the sky. We've got a hard edge there. So I think you do need sometimes to have a good combination of edges, hard and soft edges. If you just have soft edges everywhere, you know, it may not have the right effect. I suppose that could be London skyline, couldn't it? And I suppose, you know, this is the sort of painting that Turner would have done, obviously much better than this, but on location, quite possibly may have worked from one of his watercolours, where he's just jotted down enough information to then paint from. So that's how I understand possibly how he worked. But I've only just touched the surface of looking at Turner. Got a lot to learn. There we go. We've got some orange again down here along these boats. Again, just check your tonal values. It's not as dark as that everywhere. Hopefully you're enjoying this video. Please do hit the like and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and if you've been watching for a while and you haven't subscribed, please do that. It does help the channel out a great deal. Also, check out the links in the description. There's a link to my website. A couple of things that I've got membership for more videos and all the latest content with reference images and so on. My wife Kate has also added on a clearance art gallery. I'm having a bit of a sale at the moment, so if you quite like the idea of owning one of my watercolours, that's in the clearance at the moment, watercolours, but check that out. And please feel free to share as much as you can. And then that blue. So that'll be our experiment to see what effect that blue will have next to that orange. So if we put blue around that orange, don't really want any of that white to shine through. Does that blue around the orange make it look brighter? Does it look any different? Perhaps let me know in the comments if when you're watching this on YouTube. So the idea with Josef Alber's studies is that he would use colours adjacent to each other to create certain effects. So for instance, making certain colours look brighter or even change colours. But it's all relative to what colour they're next to. But again, that's a lot of information to look at and try and figure out how we could use that in our work. So don't ever think that you'll get to the point where you just really don't need to paint anymore or don't need to carry on learning, because you just come across stuff you need to know, or you don't need to know but you would like to know, or maybe you need to know it if you want to be the best artist you can. So going more towards red off in the distance here. It's quite nice to paint larger sometimes. I've been doing lots of small paintings, so to be painting on a slightly larger scale is quite enjoyable. So we can start to get some darks in. I think I might clean that palette for a moment. I don't want to contaminate my darks with any white. So my dark steers towards a warm purple. The blue and the red works quite well. And again, so this is a nice scene to ease ourselves back into it. If you've had a few days away from painting, you know, there's no shapes here that are really difficult to paint. You know, it's just a clump there of boats, and we're going to leave most of the work for the viewer to do, to turn them into boats and so on, but obviously the verticals will do that job. So soft edges, fade that illusion of a long way away. Reflections, and fading that illusion that it's water. I shall put the mass in afterwards. A nice directional line there that takes us into the scene. We've got some lamp posts there. They again recede, take us into the scene. Another directional line in there. We've got a lighter value. And I think the key is to have a brush that's fairly well loaded up. We've got a suggestion of the wet pavement here. So we'll need to look at the tonal values carefully to try and portray that. Some light on the path there. And it would be very easy to just to say give up at this point. It looks a right mess, but I've learned over the years to just stick with it. It may well end up being a mess, and in worst case scenario, I can just either show the video or delete the video. If it doesn't have any value in it, I can just delete it. But and for you, if you have a go and it doesn't work, just wipe off the canvas, and you've got a nice board with a lot of oil that's sealed the board well, ready for the next painting. Nothing's wasted. Yeah, I'm going to take a clean brush and just soften some of that and paint that in there, create the right sort of edge that I'm looking for. Obviously, we need to paint over a lot of this really, that it's not quite there at the moment. So we've got this barge. Again, there's no real detail. We have got a hard edge there. Reflection of the boat. Put some verticals in there. And you'll see how that will dramatically change the scene when you start putting in things that perhaps give the illusion that there's a boat, there's detail, reflections. So it's really useful being able to mix colours again you did before, because you can do things like that. You know, if you've forgot a little bit or just need to paint into there, you can mix that colour you mixed, no problem. And then straight into the reflections. There's a bit of warmth on the back of that boat, some orange. The sun is just creeping around there. A little suggestion of detail. Remember to leave plenty for the imagination. So let's have a go with this old watercolour brush. So opportunity to try and have a bit of fun. So, tree there. Just using a clean bit of tissue each time I do that. Just trying to create that soft edge there. Got a white toned panel under. This is a canvas panel. All that light out of there. And turn maybe. So just keep using a clean piece of tissue if you do stuff like this, because you'll just make everything messy otherwise. That's fine. So I've lost my darks, so all I've got to do is put them back in, and I can start to use some quite thick paint here now, because I don't really need to be doing that part of the painting again. I've already done it once so far, so twice is enough. And just really be loose. What am I painting here? It's just a dark shape, which perhaps could be a boat, some boxes on the boat, some fishing equipment. And really, in this scene here, it's just a dark next to a light area, which is going to give me an opportunity to put a little light on there or something, which will give it a bit of sparkle. That's fine. Lost my dark here, which looks like it's some posts. Which lead us down. Again, just a few marks there. Which lead us into the scene. combination of hard edges, which will give that illusion of puddles and so on. I've got a clean brush here. I like to just try and retain a bit of light in there. So I'm just pushing paint back there. It's going to give me some hopefully interesting marks. I'm looking for a good transparent orange. I think either cadmium orange or pyrrole orange. But on the next order, I'm going to get some. But I've always struggled to get orange to look as bright as I can. But it could be to do with what colour I put next to it, maybe. I'm just thinking about it wrong. So some maybe horizontal marks, and we just want to be laying that paint on top of what's there. These are reflections from above here. Careful, you end up with green like that. Some softer edges around there, maybe. This is a soft brush I'm using here. Again, probably a real watercolour brush. So I've lost, it's too dark here now, it needs to be lighter in value. So let's just scrape a bit of paint off. Lighten that in value a little bit. This stage, we're kind of probably almost there. It's maybe just manipulating a few edges. Try not to lose your darks. I'll just take a smaller brush, pick some white that's not contaminated, some clean white, and there we go, we've got a light there. A lantern on the boat. And I'm just laying the paint on top of what's there, just not a lot of pressure on the brush, just so that paint just leaves the brush without going through to the layer underneath. So you do need to load the brush up quite a bit for that. So just lay that paint on top. Some light catching the back of that boat. A little bit too much. And a nice play of cool blue on the front of that boat and that orange next to it. And I was just checking, you know, if I lost my darks, for instance, I've not got the dark there where I need it. And I think when you get to that sort of stage where kind of it's from a distance, it's going to look like a boat. You need to stop playing with it and just take care of maybe the shape, the reflection. So I'd like to get a little bit more light here. So I'll perhaps try using the palette knife and try being the word. And that's, I suppose, being self-taught. That's how I've learned, just to try things. Okay. And I try these sort of things, and then some of these methods I will want to use in my normal work, some I won't. Unless you try it, you don't know. Do with getting a bit of light in that sky. The beauty with the palette knife is you can start with a clean tool straight away. Just give it a wipe, you're good to go. Bring some of that lighter blue over that side as well. And we've got these figures here, which probably just a few more uprights and some figures, and then I would just leave that as it is. Then I think that we've got that person there. Again, it's just adding to the story. And that's just another aid to take the viewer's eye into the scene. Suggestion of architectural detail, which is obviously really suggesting a few branches without going crazy and losing the detail, or without losing the loose effect. The light on there. So there you go. My plan was to have a bit of fun, do something very loose and impressionistic, and just slap some paint on and make something colourful, not worrying about any sort of detail. And I enjoyed doing that. You know, is it a mess? Who knows? Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I quite like it. Whether it's something I'll keep, I don't know. But I've always got the option just to put some paint over it and paint over it in a few years' time if I want to. But for now, I'll enjoy looking at it, and it's got me back into the studio after a few days away, and off we go. And here's my experiment, and to me it does look brighter around the blue. As we know, they are exactly the same orange because you saw me paint the squares, and so it definitely proves that there is something in it. I think it's more noticeable the further we look away from it, or perhaps it's more isolated, maybe, I don't know, but it looks brighter there than it does when we look up close. Could be to do with maybe the brush strokes, which is why he says in his experiments to just use bits of paper. But again, maybe we know that if we want to really create that effect of the bright orange, maybe we need to have less brush strokes in around that area, you know, all sorts of things, you know, that we need to perhaps have a look at and try. And the only way to do it is just to try. But let's look at that again. Much smaller, both the same orange, but one definitely looks more orange than the other one. Sith Alba's experiment, that I think the top one looks brighter, and if we put the two orange squares together, you can actually see they are the same colour, but you almost need to put them next to each other to actually believe that they are actually different, because one obviously looks darker than the other one, but they are in fact the same. And in the reference picture here, I think possibly the orange against the blue does look brighter, but it might just be tricks being played on the mind, I don't know. But I had a look at both oranges, and the top one is actually slightly lighter than the bottom one, but not a lot in it. But maybe, you know, there is something to be thinking about when you're laying your colours down. If you want to have colours to look brighter or to vibrate, we need to be conscious of what colour we're putting next to it. So something to think about, a lot to learn there, I think. There you go. Good luck with your painting. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, and if you enjoyed this video, you'll love this one.